It is over, and for real this time. For the first time in a long time, Idaho lawmakers woke up today without being under an active legislative session. They will be back in January, though, to kick off the next session. But for now, they are finished after closing the long book on this year's session about 24 hours ago. Now, being the longest session, wrapped around the longest recess, lawmakers have had some time to kind of assess the last 3 days and really the whole year. Joe Paris spoke with Republican and Democratic leaders at the State House for their final thoughts on a wild week, and boy, what a wild year.
The House is adjourned sine die.
After 311 days, business is now officially closed at the Idaho State House for the year.
There was some relief there. This has been long and hard and frankly divisive at times. And so, but you notice we still had 24 people that didn't vote to end it. You know, so that spells to, that points to taking these issues up next session.
House Speaker Republican Scott Bedke says after 3 days of work, the result is disappointing for lawmakers that were hoping to see legislation passed to take on the Biden administration vaccine mandates.
And I guess we fought to a draw. We came a few votes short in the Senate of moving the legislation out of the Senate. But I think this is what we should learn from this is that this is still a bicameral system. And it's going to take the House with the Senate and the Senate with the House in order to move stuff across the finish line.
The Idaho House passed legislation this week, but that legislation failed to pass the Senate for a variety of reasons. One commentary from lawmakers is that the Senate finally decided to simply call it a year after seeing dysfunctional legislation coming from the House process. Idaho Democrats at the State House say that's not necessarily a bad thing.
I'm pleased that none of the bills that were before us passed. I had a lot of concerns substantively and procedurally about how all of this went down.
House Minority Leader, Democrat Alana Rubel, says there are concerns about the perception of the House following this week. Many saw it as the wilder side of the State House, which isn't new, but is still a concern.
It did feel that way to some extent, which pains me because I'm a member of the House. I've dedicated 8 years of my life to this body, and I hate for us to be seen as not a serious legislative body. But I think there was some of that concern. And frankly, you saw it in that a lot of the key players, some of the hospitals and the Association of Commerce and Industry and, the big players in the business world didn't even bother showing up on the House side because I think they viewed the House as hopeless and that the only people that would listen to some of these more serious concerns were over in the Senate.
The last 3 days at the Idaho State House cost taxpayers about $100,000, which some lawmakers say is concerning, saying it was simply a waste for the end result of not passing any meaningful legislation. Money aside, though, lawmakers agree the process of listening to Idahoans on major topics was very important. Just ask Senate Minority Leader Michelle Stennett.
A good education for both sides. We got to hear from the people and take those thoughts into January. And they were able to learn that there are many things already, tools that they are able to use to defend themselves and to protect themselves that are already in statute. So we made some good successes, and I think that piece of it was very encouraging and a reason why it might have been a good idea to be here. You make the best out of the opportunity.
To be clear, Idaho Democrats were against coming back this week, believing topics could wait until January. This week is a good reminder for Idaho lawmakers about the importance of the process and topics heading into January.
We're not the same people. Our constituents aren't the same. Our regions aren't the same. Our economics aren't the same. And so that's where we have to be the voice for the people who elected us, and there will be differences. It's how we manage ourselves with those differences and stop the labeling and the attacking and actually get down to work and respect each other in the process.
With essentially no legislation passed this week, the stage is now set to take up COVID and vaccine issues early next year. Some lawmakers argue that not passing anything this week is okay. It's proof that the system works.
Everyone knows this on some level. Now, we get wrapped up in our own ideas and the strength of those ideas, according to us, but until we go through a vetting process, until they are peer-reviewed, and we want our system to work that way. If we're going to change laws, we want there to be a thorough vetting in both the House and the Senate because our system moves slow on purpose. We don't change things easily. And when we do it when there is agreement. And if we don't have agreement, we shouldn't change it.
All right, Joe, I kind of heard this from a few legislators, and I kind of saw this as well. A different vibe this week than we've seen over the last couple of sessions. Safe to say, or too simple to say, decorum returned over these last 3 days.
I think that the idea that the State House is this serious, boring place has been a joke over the years, but there's a reason why it is perceived that way. It's because it had been for so long. But Brian, as we saw last summer with, a lot of community engagement, if you want to put it that way, things did get out of hand out inside the state capitol. And times during the session this year, things got out of hand as well. And there was a concern heading into this week that, again, there could be all kinds of sideshows that would distract from what's really going on at the State House. So to answer your question in a long form, it did feel like a very return to traditional State House this week, and it's something that lawmakers noted to me that they really appreciated from each other as well as members of the public. Whether they got their way or not this week, and there's always a few exceptions to this.
There was a few, yes.
Lawmakers said, with the exception of one or two people specifically, everyone was really respectful this week. There were tough conversations. There were serious conversations that become very emotional. But lawmakers gave me the impression, and what I saw, people were respectful of the process, and that's the point. The State House is supposed to be boring and mundane because we're making laws for our society to live under. It's not supposed to be this big entertainment sideshow that sometimes it has become here in Idaho and nationally as well. And Brian, you could say it's the sign of the times, but in terms of no news is good news, in terms of the decorum, yeah, lawmakers will agree with that.
Let's hope that continues into January's session 2022. And again, as you said, these things aren't swept away. We're going to see these issues come back up in about 7 or 8 weeks.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure that the chatter about it all,
Yep.
in December, we'll start to hear about it a lot.
All right, thank you very much, Joe. Now,